Suppose after you made a visit to your favorite art museum, a metropolitan museum, an Asian art museum, or whatever, and have been wowed by the simply gorgeous, enchanting, mysterious artworks on display. Suppose you could then turn a corner of this great big building and enter the actual studios and workshops of these same artists who created the works you just saw. Actually watch them at work. Even better, have a conversation with them about why they do what they do, how they're going about doing it, why they made the countless decisions that they did. Well, the work you are about to see is about that same thing. In other words, it's about getting into the kitchen with the cooks, rather than only getting to eat what the waiter serves, which we mostly only do when we go to a museum. This behind the scenes in the mind's eye of an artist was the inspiration for the film you're about to see. To overhear the bubbling, improvisational, yet somehow and hopefully cohering thinking and probing and seeing and exploratory gesturing that goes on into the creation of a piece of art, or at least this man's art. When I begin a painting, I don't begin with a painting so much as I begin to sort of orchestrate my field a little bit. And for me, given that I'm going to be working with some colored pencils, I think I'll begin with that. I like to begin with just becoming acquainted with my materials. Even before I start with the materials that are going to make a mark, I like to put up perhaps a day or two before the surface that I'm going to be working on to let it unfold and let it accommodate to the moisture in the air. And I'll usually come back a day later or a day subsequently, look at it and get the feel of it and see how the light's falling upon it, and touch it to sort of get the tooth of it, the grain of it, the propensity perhaps of it as well, and to sort of gear myself a little bit to what the enterprise might be. Well, that's the surface that I'm going to be working on. And as I said before, the material that I think I want to work with, at least initially, are some pencils, some heavy, dense pastel pencils. And before I start just picking them up, what I like to do is to sort of just hone the material a little bit more to my liking. So even though they don't necessarily all need that little touch-up, I like to do it anyway because it gives me the feel of just how hard or how soft they may be. There are a number of different kinds of pencils that I'm using. Each one has a different degree of hardness, a different capacity to withstand pressure, a different lightness of touch, and of course, from time to time, I forget which ones have which capacities. So by sharpening them, I get a sense of that. I can hear it, I can feel the wood, and I can just sense how dense each of the different colors are. And as I'm doing it, I'm actually also becoming acquainted with maybe the different colors I'd like to begin with, so that this gives me a sense of sort of warming up my engines a little bit, reacquainting myself with the tools of what I'm going to be working with. After all, these are not the kind of tools and instruments that you work with in your day-to-day life, at least I don't. I'm mostly just doing what everybody else does, and working with colored pencils out of the studio is not something that I ordinarily do. So this is sort of say, hello, how you doing? What you've been doing since we worked together before. And brings me into a sort of a zone of a familiarity with the material. So I like to do that, and I like to see a well-made something or other in my hand. If I'm going to be spending some hours with the thing, I want to have something that I like the look of, the heft of, the feel of, so that when I pick it up from time to time, it's already a made, or at least from my way of feeling, a tuned thing. So, oh, here's a nasty piece that I wouldn't want to keep out like that. And so I'll do this until I'm satisfied that the instruments that I'm going to be working with are at the ready. And whether I be doing that with oil paints or watercolors, or in this case, as I said clearly, colored pencils, I have a sense that this is the kind of palette, in a way, and the tuned piano, in a way, that I'm going to be working with. I've been working with a theme for some time. That was coming through an exhibition that I had just last year called If Trees Could Sing, This Is What the Look of Their Song Might Be. I know that sounds a little nuts, but painting is sometimes that way, and that's the little notion that I have to guide me. Well, since we're talking about how trees sing, which they don't do, and they can't hear them, it wouldn't be too absurd a notion to start with, in fact, marks which you can't see. And I like to do that. The paper that I work with is a very heavy paper, a very felty paper, and it takes a very good impression. So before I start working even with color and define shape in that kind of way and make it very explicit, I like to begin, as I will today, with marks that don't leave so much color as they leave sort of a trajectory. So I have a number of things that I use for that. They're mostly roots and gnarled pieces and edges to things that I find, a deer horn or driftwood and so on, that has a lot of unpredictable elements to it. Well, so here's this unblemished field. As I say, the general theme that I want to work with is this notion of if trees could sing, what would their sound sound like? And so it's more of a gesture, therefore, for me, and that's what I'm going to do just now. And so and I guess I'm listening, not so much for the song, but I'm listening to the creases being made. I'm feeling the length of the material scratching and indenting itself. I'm getting a reacquaintance with just how much the paper will endure of my marks, and this will give me some sort of settling into the land, so to speak, of how this piece might begin. The slight little marks that are left here are just so much more hints as to where I might pursue it. But subsequently, they may be completely covered by something else, or they may somehow find their way into the piece. But at least I'll have a beginning of a substructure from which my subsequent work can find a home, or at least find some sort of ley lines to work with. And that's sort of the way this piece will begin, and it's not atypical of the way often my work begins. I was thinking of going right into, early on, now a harder, in this case, color pencils. And I like to start off sort of following that same trajectory that I was with, the marking with roots and branches. And I'll see what happens when I'm sometimes following, but sometimes not. Marks with now leaving a more conspicuous residue on the page. And I noticed that when these things wiggled a little bit, I have whatever, 3, 9, or 10 of these randomly chosen pencils, that as they wiggled in my hand, I was getting a little different, not a composition, but texture or color in this. And I sort of like that, but I didn't want to get too comfortable with sort of a cutesy solution too early. So I've rearranged them by just randomly doing that and seeing what can happen. So now this orange, which is not my favorite color by any means, has kind of appeared because of the way I'm holding things. And I kind of like that, and I'll give it some prominence for a while. But I don't want to stay too much in that area and start making images too soon. And I want to, the problem that I always have is I'm so as tall as I am, and then stuff down here gets neglected. So I think I want to, earlier on, get down to a lower thing and look at that. Move this around a little bit. Some of this stuff was getting a little too lyrical to me, and I wanted to take that away. I don't want to make a mass, a shape too early, but I'd like to give it some heft. I know I'm in the middle of this thing, and that's always a problem, at least for me, making a kind of a massive thing right in the center. Not the worst thing in the world, but well, now just notice this green a little bit more prominently, and I think I'd like that. I don't know now. Look what's happening, making an alignment, and I don't really want to do that. I want to. I changed my hands because my right hand was cramping up, but also, since I was making these kinds of uncontrolled lines, I wanted to do that a little bit more naturally or unnaturally with my left hand, which for me is the one that's more awkward. And I wanted to do that. I think there's some things that come out, like this shape over here. I don't think my right hand would do that. It's sort of a little too fancy. This is my right hand, this is my left hand, and if it's all like this, it's just all, you know, too pat. So, as I said earlier, I listen for the sound of the marks on the page, and you can probably hear a creaking in the sound, and maybe it's even being picked up as I draw here, and that's because it's a really windy day, and the doors to my studio are being pushed in by a strong northerly wind. So, no, maybe that has an effect. Who knows? But anyway, now I like that. Look at, I'm looking at the difference between my right hand doing this section and my left hand doing this section. And this seems to be sort of more, sort of in earnest, sort of more of an experiment in what could happen. That looks like somebody who's been here often before and just sort of is a little slicker. And I'm not a slick guy. I don't like that. But now, so I'm going to, I could stop right now and take a look at this thing, but I'm not going to. I'm going to press on. So what I'm doing, though, is I'm sort of looking over here and seeing how that is more coherent, a little bit more lyrical and dancey, and I want to do. I don't want that all over the place, so I'm going to stumble around a little bit, and I'm going to go right into another handful. Not quite random. That would, I don't want to be random about this next thing completely, but I have another handful, and I want to return to this section. This was becoming a shape already, for me, a little early, and so I don't. If I start making that too soon, I'll just be sort of pushing along this thing that I'm trying to make, and I don't want to do that. I want to destroy that little thing that came up too soon, and really just work with more local colors and almost not so much colors as sort of making a little bit denser area. And with this understuff now coming into play and giving it a little bit more life than if I was just scraping on another surface, another personality seems to be emerging than had been anywhere before. And it's darker, it's cooler, a little bit more congested. So I'm going to follow that possibility. These darker colors seem to be on the periphery, and I'm bending it in that way. I keep squinting because with these bifocals, I'm still not able to find a right position, so I'm just going to lift up my glasses altogether So now something I hadn't anticipated before is this kind of gray can sort of scumble over stuff, and it has no presence in itself, but I can see that the orange still appears through it, and that's all right. In fact, I have an orange in there, and so I don't want to just droop that down, but it's already taking on a real character, very distinct from this and this. And I could go over, I'm looking at this, I really like that, and I think if I just make this or this like that, I don't want to do that. So, well, worst comes to worst, I'm going to go over this stuff here. So, as it just happened, with the luck of the draw, that this blue comes into prominence. So I'm going to leave that because that was so emphatic. That and kind of nice. Well, now I thought this was an island over here, but now it seems that it's part of this. And I'm beginning to notice that with this handful of stuff, that a very different weightiness, a sensibility has come. This seemed to be like really fluttering feathers, wispy leaves, or something or other. Now, an atmosphere, a skin rather than an air, has begun to appear, assemble itself. And, well, my fear is that I'll have two really big heads, this over here, this over here. But that's, I think, too early a fear to work from. So I'm not. So I'll stay with this, develop this a bit. I don't want to make this a mess, but this is becoming so like a skin for me, a surface, and I want to punctuate that. More developed over there. And work that down. I think that, I'm interested in how nature does what nature does, and my tendency is to tidy up things. And even though I get bored very quickly with that, I have the tendency, I'm running out of stuff here, to do so. So it's an effort to make stumbly things, but have a different, darker, more difficult poetry to it. And I think by working with just simply what gets left in my hand, I'm often able to get to a place that looks natural and looks in earnest, that looks purposeful, but not so much that it looks tedious and almost as if there's no purpose at all. So I'm not that kind of guy. I do have things in mind. I do need some, probably more order in my life than I admit to, less than perhaps my wife thinks I ought to have, and most people might too. Well, anyway, but seeing in the studio, I have an opportunity to exercise at a length of time and consequences that really nobody much cares about other than me. Some prerogatives that, of course, I can't exercise in the rest of my life. So I can toy with this thing of order and chaos with less consequence than I can toy with chaos and order when it comes to going marketing or picking up the kids or whatever else. So a couple of these things got busted, and that gives me a chance to take a little breather and to sharpen up stuff and sort of not to look at that because I've looked at it so close. I wanted to sort of fall back in my memory bank so I could hopefully make some little better thinking and decisions. And, like I said at the beginning, when I, in this case, with my tools, sharpen up my materials for the next go at it, I get calmed down a little bit. I stop getting so carried away with ideas which at the moment seemed compelling or interesting or wonderful. And then when I turn around, it's going to look most likely, as it often does, quite different. So this gives me a little spell. And even though I've been only working for a relatively short while, even in that half hour or so, just the familiarity with how I was holding my material, the marks that I was making, the whole just physical effort of doing so had sort of developed a little routine, and I think perhaps masked some of the aesthetic in different areas, or the truthfulness of what I was trying to achieve, and it just sort of became now a little performance that once I began, sort of feel indebted to continue. That sometimes is all right, but I wanted to pursue a little further around the bend what would be possible with a range of material that I haven't used for a while. I've been working with oil pastels, which I think I'm going to come back to. But I want to, at least for the next little while, I want to stay with a much more linear and dry stroke. I'm sort of feeling okay about that. And I want to get, I was going to go with this gray, cool stuff there. But that's something that I can almost anticipate what's going to happen. And I think what I'd like to do is to go back into this area here, now with a range of oranges again, and to see what happens. I think I'll lose a lot of orange, but I may actually make some of the oranges deeper red than before. And so I'm really, well, let's see what happens. I'd like to, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick up the same, not same. This is a color that, in fact, I didn't sharpen, but it has a nice cool red. And I'm thinking that if I go over that orangey area with this thing, we may get something. So let's see, this is all going to be orangey, reddy, pinky stuff. And I don't want to screw this up. Sort of like that. I like that. This is something different again. So what happens if I, nothing at the moment. Go over this whole thing. Feels good. Some of this stuff looks all right. And some of those paler oranges are indeed being enhanced by this, that I hope for, and that seems to work. And some of that gray stuff is, you know. Now, some of those marks that I made earlier on with just the roots and things now come forward, and the shapes that were in here that I wasn't terribly fond of now become really an atmosphere. And I'm interested more in that atmosphere. I used to be interested in the mass, the solidity of things in an open space, but I think more and more I'm enjoying atmospheres and densities of the thicknesses of light as they go in and around and twinkle and bounce on stuff. And so this, all of a sudden, seems to, there's some great things. It seems to not bother with the blue, so that's good. And I think I want to really make a long, rather than a choppy type of thing right there. This makes no sense, but maybe I can. Well, I know that's going to come back to haunt me. But it's not going to disappear by going over with something lighter. And I like the idea of the thing being darker up there, so I don't know. I might leave that for a while. I could take this kind of thing up here and just cover that, but I'd rather somehow get rid of it like that. And I don't think this stuff really erases very much, but I'm gonna, well, actually, that's not so bad. I'm going to try with another kind of an eraser. So actually, that's not too bad. Well, I'll never erase it. I'm sure of that. So, but it's more than I thought that I could eliminate, and then I might have to make this longer than I want. And it occurs to me, for a person who might be looking at this, you may be asking, what are you doing, Peter? What is it supposed to be? One of the favorite questions that people ask me. What is it supposed to be? And the truth is, I don't know. At the moment, I think when people ask me that question, and when I stopped asking myself that kind of question, when they ask me that question, they're really saying, what thing does it represent in the world that I'm familiar with? And there I can say nothing. Because it isn't a thing in the world that I happen to be interested in at this time of my work. I'm interested in qualities rather than in thinginess, sort of adjectives rather than nouns. So it isn't anything, but it's, when I think of, to compare myself in quality, but when I think of what Mozart, Bach, Brahms were up to, and you wouldn't ask him the question of a Beethoven sonata, what is it? As if, what bird makes these kinds of sounds? It's about composition of tones and harmonies that somehow are analogous to, I think, states of sensibility rather than optical things. So what this is sort of like, for me, a little musical riff. I'm making, in my mind, a musical composition that has a certain chord, a certain key that I'm working within, a certain tonality that I happen to be interested in, or these particular tones suggest certain strokes, certain sort of melodic lines, certain intervals, certain kind of vivacity, certain pace, certain tempo. And it's that I'm about. So if it's so it is a musical composition that happens to be visual. And I said, I think I said at the beginning that the title of this series that I've been working on for some years, if it has a kind of title to the big theme, is if trees could sing, this is what their song would look like. Well, something like that. So, well, those strokes they aren't offensive or intrusive. They're still offensive, as they were before. And now this whole thing that just was a swarm like that now begins to kind of have a world to inhabit. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. So what I think, though, now I could right away just cover it with an oil pastel. But if I do that, I'll never be able to go into that again with a harder stick pencil as these are. So I'm going to see if something like this would cover it. Oh, and it does. Oh, that's not bad. Actually, this is an interesting thing. This is more like a compressed pastel, and this is more like a super duper compressed, like a waxy one. So in fact, this, not entirely, goes over that pretty well. And I don't know if this will go over, and that's pretty good. Maybe a little too heavy. So let's see what happens. Well, unfortunately, it's still transparent. And although it makes it didn't solve the problem that I was looking for, it's a nice tone. And I'm going to bring these two over. Not so smoothly, but now that, I might really have to see. Well, I can always do that. But now I think I'm going to just have to bite an inline bullet. And well, that's not going to do it either, because it's too transparent still. So this stuff I can't erase, but I can scrape back that oil pastel. Well, I think I might just simply have to gray that out. And, all right, maybe I shouldn't be so pissed off at that now, although it makes a difference to me. I think I'm sort of a little bit too preoccupied with that. So I'm going to let that go. This stuff here feels good. And I'm thinking that I could just carry this whole kind of thing over and capture that. I could do that. But then I think the whole thing would just go to sleep. So I'm thinking that rather than do that, I might I might change my medium. I might go into an oil pastel. If I do that, it's going to create a very, very, very different kind of skin to this. And I wonder if that's going to do it. I could, and well, so I'm really, I could do that. And then I'd have two really different looking things. That might be okay. And then maybe introduce what I did over here. So, all right, I'm going to do it. That is, I'm going to work with oil pastels rather than with these pencils. And I'm thinking, well, I could screw it up right here, and let's see. I've been thinking of that. That's a little too bright. That would work in a different kind of way. Actually, I don't know if I have inks enough. I could. No, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, what color was that? No, not that one. I'm going to work. I'm going to work with oil pastel, which would resist some of the ink, and then I'm going to put ink here. But, well, I could really, well, let's just see. Let's see what happens. If I, what I'm worried is, if anything, from the previous drawing will appear if I do this. Well, lightly, some is. I think that if I don't apply it smoothly and evenly, it'll give it enough liveliness so that it won't look like an entirely different kind of world. So that's what I'm going to do. So, okay, I'm going to do it. Not that anybody in the world cares, but I care. So here's what we'll do. We will do it. I wonder what will happen as. So if I don't just merely scumble, I was going to blend it in, but maybe I'll keep the delineation so that it's not like, you know, I forgot about something or I'm being cutesy about it, but there it is. Two different things. Let's see how they get along, and they may not. and give it a little personality by not pressing evenly, which I could do. So that underpainting, or that, not underpainting, but that underdrawing now, that's going to change here. Is now seemingly playing the dominant role on this side. I wonder, in just a second, I'm going to see how that works out. But if I went back into this stuff with these other things, whether I could really I could bring that up. The stuff that disappears, I could find it again if I really wanted to. Maybe I don't want to. And maybe that's screwing around a little bit too much, so we're going to stop doing that. All right. So, well, that's wrong to be dark like that, right there. I wouldn't have done that just so. Well, so I noticed that as I'm scumbling over this thing, that there's a seam in the in my backdrop here, my easel. So I'm going to take this off and move it aside so that I don't get this mark here. That's not something that I want at all. I want this to be diffuse. There's all of my linear stuff. This is my atmospheric stuff. So I'm going to do that. So I've moved the paper over because of the irregularity in my easel, and I was picking up this mark that I don't want. And so I'm going to continue on now, and as it turned out, that when I moved the paper, the edge of this thing began. See, I'm picking up a mark again, but whatever. Let's see if I can eliminate that. I began to think, well, maybe I want to, I don't want to bring this to the edge. And I'm thinking that I'm going to reserve the edge, which I can always go back into, for later, and see what happens. Well, so anyway, I'm going to continue that. Also notice that when I moved it, I'm on a little rougher surface. And I'm going to bring this right up. I thought that was kind of too cutesy before, and I'm going to, without too much fussing around, I'm going to bring this all the way down And instead of sort of doing it methodically as I did before, I'm going to do it in, as I look at it, sort of more patchwork, so it'll look more patchy. And I'm not so sure that that's a good idea as I look at the thing. It's very uneven. And too uneven. So what I'm going to have to do is, since this is now really uneven, I'm going to have to back this up with another piece of paper. So hold on a minute, and I'm going to do that, okay? Because when I was working on this rough surface here, I was getting this texture, and really I wanted a little finer quality than that. I didn't want it so noisy. So I've just put another drawing paper behind it, and hopefully that'll work, and it does. Not as much as I had hoped for, but it's all right. Man, boy, quite a difference. And I'm thinking by just simply going down that it will hold this stuff together. I'm picking up some stuff underneath here, but that's the way this thing works. I can perhaps change that later on. So stop a second while I just continue that down. So all of a sudden I kind of like that. And instead of being that kind of uninteresting backgroundy thing, I'm going to pull this stuff down and actually give it a directionality. And I'm afraid I'm going to lose almost everything of the earlier drawing, but I might be able to pick some of that back up. Maybe not. But I'm going to go that direction anyway. And I'm putting another color on, this time closer to the other one. That is to this pinky terracotta. And almost, and I like that direct of the thing. Unfortunately, I don't have very much of this color. But we'll see how far we get with it. Was it? It does it more. I'm just going to see what happens if I scrape away some of that surface stuff and see if I can retrieve some of those earlier colors. I can. And maybe that's all that I really need. I don't know. We'll see. Too bad I don't have too much of this color. All right. So I'm going to continue doing that. Sometimes, sort of like polishing a car or something like that, you just have to keep doing it, keep buffing it, keep filling in the blanks, and I sort of feel that's what's happening right now. Not a very stunning thing to keep your attention going, but for the purposes of this work, it's an important thing to do. So may want to take a break and go to the bathroom while I stay in the studio and work and scrub away while you're having a good time somewhere else. Go ahead. But that's what I'm going to be doing here until I get to the bottom of this. And so now I was thinking of taking this whole kind of sensibility and bringing it over here. And I could do that. And I think that's the thing that you would expect. Or I could, and I'm thinking I'm going to do it, is I'm going to go into this with a solvent. I have some, what am I going to use? A paint thinner, mineral spirits. I think it stinks, and but I'm going to do it and see what happens. I'm going to put a solvent over this whole thing, and then hopefully, my hope is that this surface, instead of having that personality that it presently has, will come back to something like that. The problem will be that I might erase everything. So I'm thinking that what I might do is put some of this, these marks here. I'm going to stroke, not everyone, but let's see what just happens. With, if I can preserve some of that white. I'm not sure this will do it, but well, we'll see. I like that. I like these strokes. And I think I can perhaps, if that doesn't work, I might be able to just scratch back into it with my own fingers or something or other. That's not right. So I'm going to, here we go. See what happens. I was going to put ink on this. Well, that's kind of interesting. It seems that if I don't press very hard, I don't have to get all of it smooth. I'm a little nervous that I'm going to lose everything, and I probably will. I probably am going to, yeah. Seems that the rag itself clogs up, and that's all right. It makes it a little drier. And it's interesting that the solvent actually works on what I thought was a waxy pastel as well. So I'm not just smoothing it out as I did over here. And I will at the edges. I think I want this really indifferent. But then when I come into the thing, I want to pick up more of a textured surface, because this is so active over there. And I don't want it to be too, this is too active, too noisy. And this seems to capture some of the tone and point of view of the other thing, on this side that is. And maybe it would look, when I look at this as compared to this, whoa, world of difference, at least to me. This seems to be embedded into the surface as this is, whereas this seems to be another whole scheme of things. So I'm going to continue that. Also, these terrible lines that were not intentional and was an artifact of the easel that I made, I can now eliminate. And I don't have to do the whole thing in the same way. I might just leave this area here. Well, let's see what that looks like. Well, I like it much better. Hope you do. And I can bring these two together more. Well, what do you think? Not so bad. So I can go back into the thing and now do a little bit more purposeful stuff and really do a little bit more balancing, or drawing actually, not balancing. All right. That being the case, now that changes everything. At least to me, now this becomes, which was before sort of light little dancy things around, this becomes now the dominant presence, and this becomes a foil for that. So it was just the opposite before. And so now I'm wondering, I could, well, you know, I was going to take this sensibility and bring it over here and therefore kind of make this a sandwich. But I don't think so. I think I'm going to take things from here and bring it over here. I think I'm going to do a similar texture, but I mean the same, not so much texture, but I mean the same thing that is happening here. I'm going to happen over here, but I'm going to change the color and picking up something from here. Maybe, therefore, addressing the problem of that. All right, so I'm going to go with that idea. And the other week I was at my favorite little store, Utrecht Art Supplies, and they have a really lovely pastel. Lots of people have it. It's called Sennelier, oil pastel. And they have tones that I can't get in any other brand. And it's really greasy, delicious, and very sticky. And so it's like a joke. Bad joke. So that's what I'm going to put down now. It's so soft and creamy or buttery or something like. So that's what I'm going to use. That's the stuff. And I have a feeling it's almost slipping out of my hand. So that's what it does. Kind of interesting. It doesn't stick to the chalk pastel as the other brand, X brand of the other stuff that I was using. I love, it's a great color. It's the Van Gogh oil pastel. It's a harder, drier one. This is a oilier one that, and again, has a different range of colors. You can kind of see it's more transparent, more, I don't know, waxy. And I'm not going to do the whole thing at the moment because I just want to see if it's going to work at all. And so let's see what happens when I put that in solution. So, see, without any undermarking, it doesn't have any more personality than that. But I think I remember going back into it a second time, and even with this, just a little bit of the solvent on it, it picks up a little bit more color. And this time, I won't dissolve it. Oh, there goes a piece. And, well, everything's gone now. Anyway. So I think I'm going to do that. But before I do that, what's going to happen here? That's not something that I addressed. And I'm thinking that with all of that stuff going on, that I don't want a big I don't want a fancy shape. I think that that the relation between this big mass and this big mass doesn't need a big something or other like that, that there's enough conversation, enough talky business between these two kinds of things there, that I don't need on top of that a fancy shape. I could always change my mind. I can always change the thing around by modifying it later on. So I think what I'm going to do now, last time I sort of ended this up here, thinking that I was going to end it. I was going to just continue this thing up and down. But maybe this thing should float. And I think I could probably make that decision when I continue with this. And let's see just what happens. Maybe something that I'm not feeling at all at the moment about may begin to appear. For me, this makes no particular sense, but nor does anything appear. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue with this grayish blue and just come down here. Maybe, anyway. And not parallel. Here it seems to be parallel to the side. Maybe I'll make it thinner there. See what happens. I have the space for it. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. So, I don't know. You know, when I started out, I was thinking, well, what am I going to do? There's going to be a film of this thing, trying to catch what I'm doing, making a big this, and I was thinking, well, what'll I do? And it turns out I never know what I'm going to do. Or what it turns out is never what I thought I was going to do. So I don't mean to be flip about that, but I mean that, at least for me, thinking is not the way that I can actually know enough. I can never really visualize all of the surface things and the lines and the this and that. Much of it is sort of alchemical in terms of something happens that as a resulting of two things that I do know, that creates a third thing that I can't anticipate. Well, so I guess that's my life too, frankly. But certainly it's my painting that I know I'm going to use this color and I know I'm going to use this stroke, but then what happens when these two things meet, that's why I go back into the studio to find out. Well, so my thinking now that I see stuff here is that this gray, that's pretty transparent, I like it. Whoops, is it the same gray? You know it is. No, it isn't. No, it's not the same gray. Isn't that interesting? I thought I was using the same gray, but in fact it's a grayer. Here's the color, and I don't have much of that. Oh boy. See, that's not the same thing either. Well, I might be out of it, but maybe not. All right, let's see what happens. Yeah. There. See, it's a different thing. Oh boy. It's much bluer. Isn't that something, eh? So I couldn't see it when it was in the wrapper, but when I put it down, and well, now I'm getting blue from somewhere. So go figure how to do stuff. And I wonder if it was just on my hand, but if it is, I wasn't using that color. Come on. So, okay, here we go. I think this is the last of this. I hope not, but it may be. So I'm just going to put this down knowing that I'm going to go over it anyway. Boy, now that was a mistake, eh? Well, we'll see what happens. That's kind of interesting that when it dissolves in this mineral spirits, it's even more conspicuous, the difference of the color. I should have seen it, but I didn't. So I love the word sfumato. That's what I'm looking for here, since that's such a heavy skin surface, like an elephant's hide. This I really want to sort of disappear. And just making it, that gray that I put on even dissolves differently. It's a little denser, so, oh. I wonder if it's going to dry just like that. Maybe. Maybe not. Well, all right. So now, if that's the case, what do you think? That's not a good idea. I thought I could pick up some of that. All right. I can't do that. All right, so now, well now, where does that leave me? This, give me a hard time. But that's a better solution. Or does this now take on some mass? My feeling is I'd like it to. And then let this go, but build some stuff up there. Not at the very top, but this is not a bad line. Somewhere anyway, around there. I'll fix that sucker at some point. I'm not sure about that, but this is all right. That worked very well. I bet I can pick up, if I want to, some of this stuff over here. But at the moment, see this now. Well, now I don't have to build this whole thing up to this line. That's kind of all right. Just like that. So I think I'm going to go back into this with a little bit more muscle. Well, we'll see. Sort of make it like a stellar. I know I was using a gray. Maybe a red. But certainly those other colors. I don't remember having red in my hand, but they were together over here, so maybe I did. Anyway, I'm going to do that. And then, why don't what I'm thinking of is, why don't I remember? Well, I guess that's it. Some blue, some this, some that. Oh, well, here it is. I thought there was something else. A little blacker. And, well, let's just try. Well, I don't like that green. I don't know where that came from. So the problem that when I first began the thing, I was knocking myself out because I know I had plenty of time. Now, as my sensibility is kind of confined, hopefully refined, but certainly confined by other things, I'm a little bit more cautious. And I don't know if I can get away with that. And this red, that was a wrong thing too. So that was so I'm afraid to get up here too much. Maybe I should. Maybe I should just go right on to the top. Well, before I get to there, I'm going to give myself a little breather, come down here, and elongate this stuff. And I'm thinking I could hide this crap there. I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't think you can really hide it. So maybe, and I can do something with that. I don't know what. So, no, that's stupid. Well, it's not necessarily stupid, but it doesn't. It's not elegant. This is not working. Huh? So this, I think, just has to be severe and stop screwing around. I think. And come almost to the top. And bring that instead of just as a band, now I'm thinking I'm going to bring that well, I'm almost over here. So I could bring it down. Well, now that's interesting because then this white stands out. So that's an idea. So, but I'm out of ammo. I'm going to just carve these. So I think I'm just going to make a little cascade here, but with no personality, just to kind of bring it down. What happens if I do that? Jesus, isn't that something? It still pisses me off. I can't get something that works there. But I have to get resolve that. So the only thing that I seem to be able to do is just to go into it more. And but this time, instead of with that gray, with a sort of a deep, the same color more or less as that. And maybe I can. All right, supposing that's, we'll just say that's going to be that thing. And bring that, anchor it down a little bit. All right, so I don't mind that so much now. So what's going to happen down here? Well, so if I can't think of something, what I was thinking about, I'm going to go over here a little bit, patch around. But I think that just needs to be continuation. But I think what I'm going to do is going to sharpen some more stuff a little bit here. So here we go. Yeah. So I have so much action and stuff happening all over the place. I'm going to just make this vertical and be done with it. Maybe except for this thing here. Well, we don't need that. Okay. I made that too dark. What is he doing? Go. Well, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. And it's not going to come out, I don't think. So, a lot to do. I think I'm going to have to go over that with just white. I don't know. I wanted that thing to just disappear, and it's not just disappearing. This is not going to work, but it will work a little. Well, all right. That's an idea. That's an idea. So, what happens if I well, that would be a different thought. I'm thinking that instead of stopping it here, I could continue it up. And then see, that would, I could do that. So this is this would be important to make a decision about. I could fall into a couple of things. I could take this right on up, and then this would be the form that spoke. I could take this up and make that the whole shape that spoke. And if I did that, let's go up to the top. Let's go up to the top and see what happens. And I wonder if I add some other, not to be too cutesy though, in which I might. And then just take this straight up. A little too much purple. A little too much purple. Okay, that's enough of that. Well, it's an idea. So I'm going back into that troubled area. And boy, you know, you make a mistake early on in your life, and it sucker haunts you. Something may come of this goddamn thing. But boy, it's waking me. It's waking me. Just let go, okay. Get a little some personality into this. So let's see what happens now, finally. That's an idea. So, maybe not a big idea, but it's an idea. Get that fucker right up to the top there. too much. Too much. We might have to wait till this dries a little bit. Let's see. Well, we can do that. Well, that's an idea. Lighter. And some of this stuff we don't need that dark. So I'm kind of just, now that I have so much here, so much I don't need to, I don't think go as dark, to go as heavy, go as personable all over the place, because I have the thing so talky as it is. So I think what I'm going to do is quiet it all down. But I think what I need to do is to wait till this dries a little bit to keep the new crayon pastel up on top. Otherwise it keeps dissolving in the mineral spirits, and that's I don't want to do that. So I think we're gonna let this go for a bit, and then return once that dries a little bit more, and I can lay a little lighter gray even than that. All right, so we're going to take a little break, and then we see what happens. I'm bushed. Not entirely unhappy. And I think when I come back, I'm going to turn it upside down so I could see it a little bit better. And maybe that solvent will evaporate enough. So as you can see, I've turned the piece upside down from where I began it. And I've taken a couple of hour break and not looked at it in all that period of time, just to try to see it fresh, if at all I can. And there are a couple of things right away that don't seem to be part of this, and I'm not quite sure how to make it part of it. There are a couple of, I'm looking at this part here. That white, of course, doesn't make it. This doesn't make it, and I can fix that real quickly, and maybe I should start there. This all seems to be meaningful. It seems to be a graceful, interesting kind of flow that has a really lovely, I think, conversation between this and that. One reveals another aspect of the other. This is a dead zone for me. This turns out to be quite reasonable, plausible, decent. So I'm going to stay with that. And I'm going to make, even though I might not be satisfied with the piece ultimately, then I might go back to it at another time. I'm going to work on this, and it's a key thing, so it might screw up everything, or it might turn things around. But I like it a lot. It doesn't have any mass, and I was trying to avoid that. It has more just the presence, a little series of arabesques. It seems to be almost like blown, like dandelion, whatever they are, seeds in the wind, and it is more energy than it is specificity. That looks a little. That's too warm. This is a little too orange. This now looked pale to me, rather than light. I'm just going right on the surface of it. Seems when I'm sort of more wild with my mark, I return to some of the energy that I had earlier, but was a little not necessarily purposeful energy, but nonetheless it had some more guts to it than. Well, I'm going to, I noticed that there's some dentures on that side that I can pick up as I went over it with the orange, but it didn't seem like orange was what I wanted. This is the too darker one. I wanted the more of the charcoal one. I think this is it. This is a little warmer, a little broader, a little less screechy. Falling into the bit of miasma there. So what I'm noticing is that these little scratchy things underneath had a really lovely character that the subsequent going over it like this missed. And so I'm going to put some of that back in by giving it a little bit more presence rather than just a little stroke as it had before. And this is a little light here that I'm going to bring out by darkening that a little bit. So this feels like a little bit more of a flash. So it seems that what I'm doing, I'm sort of developing the personality of this rather than being just a series of marks. I'm giving it what I hope is some more purposeful presence as a counter conversation to the other thing. Does it do it? It does. More than I would have initially thought. And now I'm just going to balance, with my way of thinking anyway, some of the sort of like really tuning the thing so that it isn't just this general thing here, thing there, but that there's a little bit more deeper internal conversations, little sort of deeper internal rhymes than what just occurred before. May not make a hell of a lot of difference to anybody, but that's the case of all of my stuff. But it makes somewhat of a difference. I mean, a real difference to me. I'm wondering now that this has such a nice force, and I like that, I wonder, can I get away with bringing back some of those earlier marks that I got rid of, when I just trying to organize this whole portion here. What the hell is this about? There was something in the back of that that made this thing here funny looking. I want that to sort of droop more without being too talky. And so I'm going to so there's something, not too much, and I'm wondering, it looks like maybe from where you're looking at this thing, nothing is happening, but I'm like if I was a poet, I would be taking out a comma, putting in a comma to sort of slow the rhythm down a little bit, a little change of surprising meaning without being cutesy. And that's my concern at the moment is, as I get to this point, that what I'm trying to do in one way is to refine, in the other sense, is to simply make it tedious. So this blows that nicely away. My temptation is to screw with this a little bit here, make that a little less predictable. Doesn't mean anything. And I wonder, last I think I'm going to address here in any case is later on I might come back to this and look at this thing here. I'm not quite sure that's the way it ought to be. This to that. But for the moment, we'll leave it at that. These goddamn things still are bothering me. And I'm going to somehow, I don't know how, but we'll see, get rid of that. I'll just have to sort of just take my time. We won't mess with this just now. Now the last thing that I would look at again is this. Maybe what should happen there is just let it go. No need to have all that stuff there. Not all over, not all over, not all over. It'd be a mess of the thing. Well, around this time, the perennial question comes up, when's enough enough? And I never really, and I don't know if anybody has a pat answer for that, but for me, there comes a point when I can't see anymore. I'm running out of purposeful eyesight. And there's enough here to give it some presence. But I could change the thing and make a different painting. Would it be a better painting or just another painting, a different painting? And I could see what I would do differently. I might just do one more little thing right here. A little pale. to hold the center. I'm just going to give that a little, like a wash. Did it change anything? Maybe not. But it holds it a little bit more reasonably. No reason for this to be light like that, but it could be light up there. And so this is I'm just sort of evening out this thing a little bit more striations than necessary, so I'm sort of filling in the low spots. I don't like. Oh. And so all of a sudden, all that gray seems unnecessarily all that gray. And beat that into a little bit of more submission and mess it up, screw it up. Doesn't look. I think mostly what I'm doing as I'm looking at this thing, I'm not really changing very much. I'm sort of scratching more the under painting, under material rather, to come forward. And all right. I keep saying this is the last stroke, and then something happens, blah, blah, blah. Like it, huh? So for the time being, dot's dot. Some nice stuff. Trees singing, the look of trees singing. All right. All right. I think it looks like it's still growing. I think it's still like an afternoon with the wind blowing as it is blowing today. I think it has a bigness, nonchalance about it, a rawness, a wildness. And it feels like if it was, if you found this on the floor of a forest, you wouldn't be surprised. You wouldn't know it was a picture. It could just be a pretty section of the floor of the forest, a surprising floor of the forest. And well, that's that. Okay.